Is your team not performing well? Is morale low and turnover high? Are you falling further behind the competition? I'm here to help. I'm your host, Shani, and this is the Leadership Show, where business strategy and culture finally meet, and we make the long-awaited shift from rhetoric to results. I promise I'm not your typical boring leadership consultant, and I will help you get your shift together. Let's do this. Hello, Leadershifters, and welcome to another episode of the Leadershifter Show with Shani. As many of you know, I have big wanderlust, and everywhere I go around the world, I collect friends. I collect great people into my inner circle who I love to stay in touch with and believe there's a reason that each one of these people has come into my life. Well, our guest today on the show is Lars Dierauer, and we met in Indonesia, in Bali, while we were both on our way to the island of Sumbawa to visit the Golden City. Lars is Swiss and a fellow world traveler like myself, and he is also a holistic health coach. He's the one I've been raving about on social media that I've been working with now for the past month and a half or so. And he's been helping me immensely. And I'm already really healthy, I thought. So it's really a privilege today to have Lars join me on the show. And we're going to talk about some of his approach and some of the things that have informed me the most during our journey together so far. So stay tuned. Lars, welcome to the Leadershifter Show.
Thank you so much, Shani. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to share. It was a pleasure meeting you in Bali. You're right. Wherever we are, we meet some amazing people around the globe. Yeah, it's a pleasure being here. It's a pleasure sharing what I picked up on my journey and working together with you. Thank you.
Fantastic. So also, I should point out that even though Lars is Swiss and we met in Indonesia, we are doing this podcast from his Airbnb in Mexico because Lars is still traveling. We're traveling again.
Yeah, traveling again. We kind of was quickly back in Switzerland, but then decided, well, there's better places to be during these crazy times. So
absolutely.
Beautiful place.
So it's like I don't even know where to start because I've learned so much from you, which is kind of funny because I thought I was already so well informed about health and nutrition and the right things to eat and the wrong things to eat and inflammation and all this stuff. And yet I knew so little. One of the things that really convinced me that I needed to work with you was talking to you in more detail about the process that you take people through. So let's go ahead and start by explain to our listeners and viewers sort of your philosophy and what your process looks like.
Yeah, well, when I started going into health coaching, I was studying nutrition, and or let's say even before that, I was super curious about nutrition, doing different detoxes, parasite cleanses, and all of these things, and then incorporating nutrition, holistic nutrition, into a part of my process. And quite fast, I found out, I wasn't sure at that point what actually I want to work on, what is my specialization and what do I really want to do, because I wasn't suffering from a disease, so I couldn't bring people through like a program fighting this disease. But what I figured out for myself, being in the process and what I did in the past, is how hugely I had a shift when I started working on detoxification, but more for working on the gut health, that actually my digestion tract is healthy, and that whatever I'm putting into my mouth, whatever I'm eating, is absorbed in the most beneficial way, so that it is absorbed. That all these good nutrients that we are taking in, that actually my body can absorb it and can use these as building blocks for whatever the body needs to do. And when I was working together with my mentor at that point, she really melted it down to how important gut health is, and that basically all of our diseases are starting in the gut, and they are linked to some poor health in the gut or poor digestion. And for many people, it's just a normal way. Like, for example, when we are bloated all the time, when we are having constipation or diarrhea, for most people, it's just, well, that's a normal thing. But these are all signs that something is going wrong in the digestive system, and that then could lead to whatever diseases are growing out of a poor digestion. So for me, it was like the ground zero to I want to improve my own gut health. And the shifts I saw through that, through working on the gut first, and then going step by step up of going into detoxification when you have a healthy gut. And incorporating, of course, all these things you said as well. You had knowledge already about healthy food to get the most benefit out of what we are actually eating, to make it supportable for our body and for all the functions we are having in our body.
Right. This was very, very impactful for me, because I've done cleanses, I've done the Whole30, and as have a lot of people that I know, and we've mostly felt surprisingly little benefit, or less benefit than we would have thought. And I think part of it is right, if our gut health isn't right and we're not digesting properly, we're not getting the benefit of the nutritious food we're putting in our body. And so it's like, before we go into like the cleanse and the eating habits, expecting benefit from the eating habits, we do have to go into the fixing the gut first. And whether it's leaky gut, which has become a very popular thing, and so whether your gut is actually leaking, which I think a lot of people's are, or your gut just isn't healthy. And another statistic you shared with me that I think you guys should all know, 80% of our immune system is in our gut. So this isn't just about healthy digestion and not bloating and gas and stuff like that. This is how we stay healthy in general. So, go ahead.
Yeah, and this, I guess most people are familiar with the microbiome, which was only discovered 1-2 centuries ago. Before that, we didn't know that there is actually bacteria which are supporting us in the body. Like we always, in the past, we were working in a way against the bacteria and against the viruses. So we want to disinfect everything and we want to kill everything. And that was the beliefs we were holding, and not knowing that actually in our gut there is 100 times more bacteria than actually we have cells in our body. And these bacteria live in an ecosystem with each other, and they are basically not just digesting, but they are a huge part of who we are, because they outnumber us literally by, so we are actually more bacteria, more fungi, more viruses than we are actually human, from not only from the numbers but also from the DNA. They hold more DNA than we hold the human DNA we are having. And for such a long time it was all about killing the bugs, killing the bacteria. And our gut is under constant bombardment, basically, from all the different chemicals we are having from the medicines, the antibiotics we are taking, but also the pesticides, the fungicides on our food.
Right. All the toxins in the environment are killing our good bacteria.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And creating an imbalance through that. And for me, realizing that and seeing that, wow, it makes a lot of sense that we need to start in our gut to heal our body, not just from what you said, not just digestion, but when our immune system, or 80% of our immune system, is located in the gut, and this part of our body is under constant stress from the outside world, but also from stress we are creating from our minds. Like, we are super stressed, and it's not just the chemicals
right.
coming in, but it's also the stress we are having, the emotional stress we might go through, the stress in work we might go through, and that all has a huge impact on our gut health. And then from the gut health, which is now seen as where the disease are starting, or where a huge part of the disease are coming from a pure, or from a not healthy gut, leads into other diseases. So when we can work on improving our gut, we are not only working on the gut, we are working on how we are feeling as a human being in a whole.
Right. Thank you for raising that, because one of the things I forgot to say in the introduction is what the heck nutrition and gut health has to do with leadership, right? It's the Leadershifter Show. Why am I having a holistic health coach who focuses on gut health and detox as a guest? Well, folks, because you're a person, and you can't be the best leader of yourself or your team or your organization if you're not healthy and you're not feeling good. You won't be productive. You'll have brain fog, right? All the things. And so this is like, let's go back to basics and make sure we're taking care of our underlying health, because that will improve our performance as leaders. So that's what it all has to do.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's how we should see it, right? It's if you are healthy, if you feel energized, if that directly leads into motivation, that directly leads into, you can make better decisions. And it's an interesting point what you mentioned there. We always think like that the brain is the controlling system in our body. In a way it is, but it needs the gut. There is direct information exchange between the brain and the gut, like the brain-gut axis. And fascinatingly is that 9 from 10 signals are actually coming from the gut and going into the brain, and only 1 out of 10 is going from the brain down to the gut. And what we can see from here is that the gut takes in all the information of how is our body feeling, what is happening in our body, uses this information because it is centered in our body, right? It's right in the center of our body. And this is the best location to gather all the information of what is actually going on in our body, and then sends this information up to the brain. And then the brain is managing, okay, what do we need to do? Do we need to release any hormones, or do we need to start different functions in our body, and then sends a signal back into the gut to do that. But actually the gut itself is what is getting all the information in and giving it up to the brain, so that then the brain can adjust to whatever is going on in the gut. And it's actually not just the gut, it's the bacteria, it's the viruses, the fungi, even the parasites. They interact with our body and they send up signals to how we are feeling. So that's why, for example, if people are suffering with depression, it's a mental illness, but it's highly linked to how your gut is feeling, because the bacteria in your gut are, for example, producing the serotonin and the dopamine. They are produced by our gut bacteria. And of course, we want to have these hormones, right? We want to feel like happy and have these
right.
Yeah, these good hormones. And when we don't have a good gut bacteria, we don't have these hormones which are then activated in the brain. So we see this correlation between the gut and the brain, and how important it is for overall health to have a healthy gut, to start in the gut whenever we want to do a shift in our health and in our lifestyle.
I have two comments I want to make in response to that, because I hope you all took that in. If you didn't, rewind and listen to the past 90 seconds of what Lars just said about how the messages so many messages are going from our gut to our brain. When I coach people and teams, most leaders, most people who've been highly successful tell themselves a story that's come from their intellect, and they rely on their brain as their primary intelligence center. And I say yes, and we have other intelligence centers in our body. One of them is our heart, that's where our empathy comes from, and the other big one is our gut. And what you just described validates what I tell people in a way that I haven't been able to describe, and emphasizes the importance of it.
Yeah, it's the gut feeling, right? We talk about what's your gut feeling?
Yes.
It's that thing, right? It's so easy.
Right. It's not just a cliche, it's science.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the other thing is just underscoring personal responsibility in taking care of ourselves. And to me, one of the biggest things a leader does is take responsibility. When you break down the word responsible, it's able to respond. Well, what does that mean? That means that we are at choice and able to respond to whatever's happening in our life from a place of choice. So if you're not feeling well, let's do something about it. And it may not just be going to a doctor and taking care of like the one body part that is symptomatic. It's part of a whole system, right? And so in addition to, yes, address whatever things are happening in your body and take responsibility for 80% of your immune system being in your gut, and start to pay more attention to that. And don't blame doctors for not telling you that you should do this. We're telling you right now.
Exactly, yeah. And this is for me, this is a huge motivation why I'm actually doing this work. When I didn't really study nutrition to work on it. I was just interested on myself to understand more about what's going on in my body, and how can how can I improve my health? How can I improve my performance? Because that was always a huge thing for me. Being an entrepreneur, I was always like, I need to perform. I need to bang, bang, bang. And nutrition and health was for me just more like a hobby, to understand how can I support myself to be more productive, to achieve more, to sleep less, to get more out of that life.
That's right. Folks, Lars used to work for a tech company, right?
Yeah. And from that, I then realized, wow, I was myself really confused of what is healthy and what is not healthy, just seeing from the nutritional side, but also how I can heal myself. And I saw that in other people as well. Then when I was eating with them, I was like, wow, there's so much confusion out there. And that gave me then the motivation to step into it and say, okay, I want to create something to empower people to have the understanding again of their health. Because it's easy to go just to have an illness and say, well, I'll just go to the doctor and I put this pill and reduce the symptoms I'm having. But with that, you're not going to the root cause of why you actually got this disease. A pill is not gonna clean out the root cause of the disease. It's preventing symptoms and making you feel a little bit better, less pain, and these side effects we have from
Right.
being. But for me, it was really to boil it down to what is the root cause and how can I use that to empower other people to get this understanding and bring back their health, because you are the only person who can do that. Nobody else can do that. Only you know what's actually going on in your body and what is feeling good for you, and no other person can do that, even though he has a PhD or whatever he was studying. You're the best, the best
right.
doctor.
You're your own best doctor, right? Totally.
Yes.
So let's back up, or not even back up, let's just shift gears and talk about the basic building block of life, which is water, right? Where the human beings are some very high percentage of water, as are plants and animals, right? Everything has much more water than anything else. And so let's talk about why being more conscious of your water habits is important and what some good water habits are.
Yeah. So yeah, you said it right. I mean, 70 to 80% of our body is made out of water. So it's the biggest abundance we have in our body, the same as on the earth. Like 70% of the earth is water. So just that shows how important it is. And when we see it from a health perspective, we can live a couple of weeks without eating, but we can only live about 3 days without drinking. And I think that already points out how crucial water is for us, because water is something the body cannot store. So I think to understand what kind of water we should drink, we should understand what are the functions of water in our body. And so, as I said, the body cannot store water. The body is using water. That's why we need always like a constant inflow of water when we drink. We have the inflow, and then we go to the toilet to release it. So we have the outflow. That's why it's so crucial to stay hydrated in all the time. So let's go quickly to the functions of water to understand what kind of water is actually what we are needing. So water is basically the transportation system in our body. So we see, for example, the blood flow. Blood is the transportation, like almost like the streets in the city. You can see the blood vessels system going through our body, and on that is where the blood is flowing, and the blood is mainly out of water. So water is the transportation system in the body for, of course, oxygen, to deliver oxygen from the liver to each cell, but also the nutrients. So whatever we are eating and digesting and absorbing from our gut is going into the bloodstream, and then from the bloodstream to the cells. And then on the other side, of course, also waste. So as a cell, the cell is almost like a company itself, something which is producing something. So everything which is going to the cell, and the cell is producing something, it also produces waste as a waste product, and these then need to be shipped from the cell out of the body. And there is, again, the water is a transportation system for that. And the fourth part of it, which is very crucial, and which is why it's also good or very important for leaders to know, that it is needed for energy production in the cell. So that means if you see your cell like a battery, and normally it runs on 100% when the cell is healthy, when the cell is hydrated, it runs on 100%. But when the hydration of the cell goes down, so when we become dehydrated, the level can maybe only be at 90% or 80% or 60% or even lower. And I think for everybody, it's very clear, if you have a battery which you can only charge for 60%, of course, you're not feeling that energized. You're not having so much power to do whatever you need to do in your life. So that's the fourth important part of water, is for energy production in the cells. And that's what's happening when we are dehydrated, when the cell or when the water cannot go into the cell. That is what's happening. And then we feel like this tiredness, this sluggishness, and we just don't feel so energized.
Yes. So folks, let me just pause for 1 second. You know, I think everyone knows how important it is to drink a lot of water and stay hydrated. Did you understand why? Lars just so articulately explained all the reasons why drinking enough water is so important. And many of us are not drinking enough water or enough high quality water.
Yeah. And because when you see these four things, the transportation of nutrients, the transportation of air, the transportation of waste out of the cells, and the cell hydration, if you see, these are the factors or functions of the water in our body. And when we now look on what are people actually drinking, so if you are drinking sodas, if you drink Coke, or if you drink milk or coffee, they're still liquid, but they don't have the capacity to do what water needs to do in our body, because we don't have sodas circulating in our bloodstream, right? We don't have these kind of fluids.
No, I think some people do have Coke or Pepsi circulating in their bloodstream.
Depending on how much they're drinking, yeah. But then you can see on their state on how well they are feeling when they
right.
have that. So these fluids are not having the same properties as water has, and these fluids cannot replace water in our body, so they cannot take the functions in our body, and that then leads to not having the transportation system, or having dehydrated cells in our body. And you were saying it completely right. I think water is such an essential part of health, and for so many people, we tend to focus a lot on nutrition and getting the right nutrition, but we are forgetting to drink enough. So many people are constantly dehydrated, and that brings down the level of energy, as I said, like in the cell, which is like a battery. And if you are running on this lower energy, of course you're not satisfied with the output you can achieve with your body in your life, not just in the working life, but also in the in your sport, whatever you're looking at too.
Lars, talk to us about pH balance. That's been a big thing in people who are focused on health and wellness, and in those circles, that we have to be drinking high alkaline water. So A, what does that mean? B, what's the right level of alkaline in the water?
Okay. Before going into that, I want to pick one point from before. So when you see water as a transportation system, how does it need to be? So let's make the example that water is like a taxi. It needs to be empty. The taxi needs to be empty. The seats needs to be free, that something can go and hop into the taxi and drive to where it needs to go, right? So water itself, or the transportation system itself, needs to be empty. That's why Coke or milk, they all have like other things in it, like minerals, vitamins, carbs, fats. So these liquids are not empty. That's why they cannot take the job of being a transportation system. And that brings us to water itself, and also to the pH level of water. So the first point I want to mention is it needs to be empty to be able to be a transportation system. It's interesting what you mentioned then from the pH level and alkaline water and all of these things, and it is an important concept. Alkalicity and acidity in our body is a very important concept, and because of how we are eating and the stress and other environmental impacts, we have too much acidity in our body, and you can then think, okay, then let's take some alkaline water to bring the pH level up, which is in a way a possibility, but water is not here to alkalize our body. Water is a transportation system. It's not the way to alkalize. And yes, it might be beneficial to drink and alkalize water for a period of time. I would say not more than 4 weeks, and then you should go back to other water, to normal water, what is actually usable for the body. Because what we do with alkaline water is to raise our pH level from acidic to being alkalized again by water. But as I said before, this is not what the task of water is in the first place. That's why it's not, it shouldn't be something we do over a long time to drink alkaline.
Right. People think it's a shortcut.
Sorry?
People think it's a shortcut. Oh, I can alkalize my body by just drinking high pH water, and I think that's a myth.
It is a myth. You can slightly increase your pH level by it, but the issue is that you're taking away what is the main function of the water. And in addition to it, there is, of course, a reason why we have different pH level in our body. And for example, in our stomach, we have a pH level of 1 to 3. So it's super acidic, and it needs to be acidic to break down the food and to kill like bacteria and pathogens, which we might take into our body. So it needs this really acidic environment to be able to break down these things and protect ourselves from whatever is coming in. When we are now drinking alkaline water on a constant base, we are always diluting our stomach acidity, and that then can lead to poor digestion. So we see there's always a cause and an effect. And out of that reason, it's definitely not beneficial to drink alkalized water on a daily basis. It might be a cure, or also like there's some healing waters which are very high in specific trace minerals, which might be beneficial for like a couple of weeks to fill up our reserves of this mineral. But then we should go back to a water which is beneficial to take its function, what it needs to do as a transportation system and as an energy storage in our body. And therefore, I like to go back to what is our body trained for? What water were we drinking in the past? What water were our ancestors drinking? Because that's what our body is used to have. And that is mainly spring water. We didn't have bottled water. We didn't have tap water. It was spring water. And spring water has a pH level of 6.4 to 7.4. So it's about neutral, can be a little bit in alkaline, a little bit in the acidic level, but it's basically neutral. The pH level of 7.
Yep. I love all of these epiphanies that I know I had as I learned these things along the way with you. And I hope all of you are learning as you listen to the discussion that Lars and I are having, that let water do its job. Don't let marketers tell you which waters are right for your body.
Yeah.
Which is what's happening, right? There's like a zillion types of water on the market now, each claiming to be the panacea, and and that doesn't live in a vacuum. Right?
That's so confusing for people, right? I think marketing is something good, but it's also a tool to confuse people to buy something they actually don't want to buy or don't need to buy.
Absolutely. And so just a couple of tips that you would share with people about their water consumption. You know, some of the things you shared with me, again, just dispelling some of the misconceptions about our water habits. So for example, you know, when should we be drinking the most water throughout the day and that sort of thing?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, give some practicalities that people can use these information and implement them in their life. So I would say, first and foremost, it's important to know how much you are actually drinking, to in a way track how much fluids are you taking in per day. And I think one of the easiest way to do that is to have like a bottle, which you know, okay, there's half a liter in it, or there's 700 milliliter in it. So you know, okay, I need to drink 3 of these bottles each day, and then I know I'm like on my 2.5 liters. How much people should drink depends a bit on their weight. We can say 30 milliliter per kilogram of weight. So it's normally it's going to be about like 2 to 2.5 liter of water intake a day is what we need to restore our body. And there are certain guidelines how and when we should drink water. So let's say we're drinking these 2.5 liter of water a day. I think there's 2 very important parts of when to drink and when not to drink. And an important one of it is drinking water should be one of the first things we are doing in the morning, because during the night we are sleeping for about 8 hours and we're always breathing in, breathing out, we are sweating. So we lose about 1 liter of water during our sleep. And taking this water, which we are losing during sleep, in the morning as one of the first thing is crucial to give a kickstart to our body. So drinking about half a liter after waking up in the morning really gives our body the opportunity to hydrate again before needing to digest. And optimally, depending a little bit on your lifestyle and when are you eating your breakfast, but definitely drinking half a liter to 1 liter of water before you're having your first meal, to really give the body the ability to hydrate and to move whatever needs to be moving in your body. And it shouldn't be though just like swallowing this 1 liter or swallowing the half a liter on a go. We should sip.
Right. We're not pounding it like a fraternity brother pounding a beer.
Exactly. Yeah, I wasn't aware of how to say it. I only, in the English expression, I only know the expression bottom up.
Yeah.
But you should bottom up your body. You should drink it like constantly in the first maybe hour of your waking up. And then also during your day, have like sips. That's why it's so amazing to just have a bottle with you wherever you're going or when you're working. Just have a bottle and like sip from time to time to take your intake of water, to make it constant throughout the day. And the second important thing, which is linked to what I mentioned before, is diluting the stomach acidity. So it's so normal for people to just drink water all the time, and especially when you go to a restaurant to order something to drink and eat and drinking. But for digestion, this is a very, very bad habit, because we are diluting our stomach acidity from what I mentioned before, between pH level 3 to 5, with water. So it raises its pH level, and by that it reduces the ability to break down our food, and our whole digestion is going to be slowed down. So one point I'm always mentioning working together with clients is just not drinking while eating. It's a habit, so it might need some time to do that. And then even to stop about 30 minutes before you're eating, and don't drink about 1 hour after you're eating. So you have like a period of 1.5 to 2 hours where you shouldn't be drinking, where your body actually should focus on digesting. Of course, it's okay to take some sips while you are thirsty, while you when you eat, but eating time shouldn't be drinking time. So they are different times. There's drinking time is between the meals, and when you have a meal, you shouldn't really drink, just to improve your digestion during these periods.
Yeah, that advice was huge for me, because I didn't realize I'm the sort of person that gets like my big bottle of Pellegrino when I go out to a restaurant, and I'm drinking lots of water while I'm eating. I thought that was what you were supposed to do, but it makes so much sense that you're inhibiting your digestion when you do that. And so it's one of the habit changes that I've made, one of many that I've made since working with you, that I either don't have a drink with me while I'm eating now, or if I do, I'm drinking very sparingly, either because I'm thirsty or because I'm washing something down that didn't quite go on its own. And yeah, it's a very, very important tip.
Yeah, and that's absolutely fine. I mean, there's also, of course, there's also like when we eat fruits or vegetables, there's a lot of water in our food as well. So it's not that we shouldn't have any water when we are digesting. It's we anyway get an intake of fluids as well while eating. So having a couple of sips when we feel thirsty, that's completely good to do, but not having like half a liter of whatever liquid and drinking while eating it. Yeah.
Yep.
And
okay.
There's one point I want to mention. And as I'm coming from Europe, it's super normal that people are drinking water, sparkling water with bubbles in it, because it gives you this refreshing taste. And I used to drink that as well. I was never drinking just still water. But the thing with, if you want to raise your pH level, so if you're thinking about alkaline water, then just take out the sparkling water, because sparkling water creates acidity in your system. When we are digesting the sparkling water, metabolizing it creates acidity. And on the other side, the water is not empty because it has bubbles in it. And it's mineralized, it's mineral water. So it's water with and I think already taking out sparkling water and changing it with still water is hugely for hydrating your cells and for stay hydrated.
Yep.
To reduce.
That was another shift I had to make in my habits. I was probably drinking more sparkling than flat, and now As I was reporting to you on our last coaching call, I'm limiting myself to 1 small bottle of sparkling a day, and the rest of the water is flat.
Yeah, and I think that's, if you really like sparkling water, it doesn't mean you shouldn't be too strict to yourself, right? Use a period of time to make changes so that you actually stick to making changes and building a habit around it, instead of doing the extreme and changing it for a couple of weeks, but then not having the discipline to keep on going with that habit. Yeah, so yeah, of course, if you're really in love with the sparkling water, have your bottle a day, but do the main thing with still water instead.
Yep, love it. Okay, so let's just touch on a couple of quick things as we near the end here. One, like, let's give, like, what's your best tip on nutrition, like, and oh, how do I want to say this? Like, food combinations. Like, what's the thing that surprises clients the most about what they should or shouldn't eat, or what they should or shouldn't eat together?
Wow, that's a huge one. I could talk about that for hours.
I know, and maybe we'll have to do a part 2 of this, although, you know, of course, I want people to hire you for the whole process, and just give them a little bit of a taste of your knowledge today.
Yeah. I think it comes down to two things. One of it, which we were already mentioning in the past, was how important it is to have actually a good gut health, because you can eat the most organic, the most shiny and good food, but if your gut health isn't there, you cannot absorb it. You cannot absorb all these amazing things which is in our food. And when I speak about these amazing things, I'm speaking about fruits and vegetables and whole food, basically, because this is what is bringing us what we actually need for our body. I'm not speaking about anything processed or synthetic, because what our body needs, I think, to boil it down easily, what our body really needs from food, it's the source of building blocks in our body. So it's the carbs, it's the fats, it's the proteins, it's the minerals, and it's the vitamins, and all the other plant-based substances in a plant. So food is not actually to still our hunger. Yes, it's a nice thing beside it, but actually the why we are eating is to get the building blocks for our body to function optimally. And I would say it is focusing, or it is looking on your plate and ask yourself, what on my plate is whole food? And what is whole food? Is basically we are taking something from how it grows and put it onto our plate, and we can still see what is it. Is it a beef, is it a vegetable, or is it something? I don't know what's in there. I see that there is something, but I have no idea what kind of ingredients are in here, and then it's not whole food anymore.
Yeah, so, exactly. Like when you see fast food chicken nuggets, and you're like, is this really chicken?
Yeah, where is the chicken here? I mean, it's called chicken nuggets, but where is the chicken here? And I think that is an easy way to see on what are we actually eating. Boiling it down to look on your plate and see where is the whole food on my plate, and because these are the building blocks for our body to do its functions, what it needs to do. And you mentioned there's something with food combination, and I think what people are surprised is when they say, well, I'm going to have a dessert, but I'm taking a healthy dessert, I'm taking some fruits as a dessert, which is a very good intention to get some fruits. But when we look at it from a digestional point, it's a pretty horrible combination to do, because fruits are very easy to digest. They have a lot of water in it, and vitamins, but mostly of it is water, vitamins, and fiber. Right. So they're easy to digest. They're digested really fast. And if we eat something which is easily digested on top of a heavy meal, it's just lying in the stomach, and it starts to ferment and putrefy on that food. And through that, it not only loses all its beneficial properties, but it also then creates these a bad environment for bacteria, because it purifies, and it creates the environment for the bacteria which like to purify things. And that's not what we want to have in our digestive tract. So I think food combinations to make it easy, like to not have a meal for like 4 or 5 different, like a starter, a salad, a soup, a main course, and then you're having a dessert, to make it more easy for the body to digest and eat in an easier way, and looking at for example, taking fruits apart, eating fruits apart so that they are fast and easy digested, and then you can eat your main meal. So an easy thing would, for example, be if you want to have a smoothie before, or if you always eat and have a smoothie, drink your smoothie before, give it 15 minutes, give it 30 minutes to digest, so it's out of the stomach, and then you're having your main meal afterwards.
Right, right. Okay, so eat fruit either in the morning because it's easy to digest, and or as a snack in between meals, but not with the meal. Because the visual that you created of the fruit sitting on top of the heavier food in our digestive tract, to me, is alone enough to make me never want to eat fruit after a heavy meal again.
Yeah. Even though the intention is good in having some fruits, but yeah, have them apart.
Yes. Well,
from other.
one of the things I say to people all the time about their behavior is, does your intention match the impact? And I usually mean that in terms of interpersonal communication. In this case, it's, does the intention of eating well match the impact of what it has on your digestive system? And the answer is no.
Yeah, it's true.
Yes. So Lars, I could continue this conversation for hours, but what is the best way for people to follow up with you if they want more information, if they have questions, if they want to hire you as their holistic health coach, as I have?
Yeah, well, there's a point. I'm not really exposed yet too much on the social medias. Yeah, I haven't created yet my, even though I'm already working over 1.5 years with my people together, they were just coming to me. So I was once working with a business coach together, and I said, well, I need to do the website, I need to do my online things. And she said, would you like to do it now? I said, no, I have many other things to do, and clients just coming. So I said, well, then just focus on that. I mean, if clients just come, you don't need to have any exposure yet. So yeah, how can they reach me? Well, if they know you, they can reach me maybe through you.
That's right.
And if I'm having my website, which should be in the next couple of weeks or months, I'm gonna let you know on my website how they can contact me. Otherwise, they can just contact me by email. So it's Lars_Dierauer@hotmail.com. Maybe we need to write it down somewhere so that
it'll be in the show notes. Yes.
Pronounce it my last name. Yeah. But I think that would be the easiest way for now to contact me when it's not through you, directly through my email address. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this wisdom with our listeners and folks. Gosh, I hope that you got a lot out of this, and maybe even listen to it again so that you pick up on things that maybe you missed, because this stuff is so important to keeping not just a healthy body, but a healthy mind, to empower you to be your best, your most productive, your most creative. I tell you, I am not kidding. In the past month or so, since things have really picked up on my habit changes, I've had more energy, more great creative ideas come to me. And my energy's been sustained into the afternoon when normally I'm just like, so this stuff is so important to your performance as a leader. Do not underestimate it. And remember how important that gut health is, that it's sending all those signals to your brain. Remember what the purpose of water is, and make sure that you're doing everything that you can under your control to give yourself the right flow of water intake and quality of water intake, and start to do some of these things nutritionally even before you do a cleanse, even if you're doing that cleanse on your own. So thank you for joining us today. As you can tell, I'm super passionate about this.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, wow, amazing, an amazing summary what you created right now. I couldn't have made it better. Amazing how you implemented these different points. It was a pleasure to be on your podcast and share some of my knowledge I gained on my own path, and yeah, hopefully raise some awareness on certain topics. On it's sometimes easy things we can implement which make a huge difference on so many different levels on our health and on our well-being. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, thanks again for being our guest today, Lars, and Leader Shifters. As always, thanks for listening. To reach me, Shani at theleadershiftproject.com. Until next time. Mwah.
thank you. Bye-bye.